What does it take to be the smartest player on the best defense the NFL has ever seen? 4 Pro Bowls, 2 Super Bowl rings, an NFL record that stood for 19 years, a degree from Notre Dame, a certificate from Harvard Business School. Dave Duerson had all of it. So why, on February 17th, 2011, did this man, this 50-year-old giant, draw his curtains, arrange his medals in a row, lay an American flag across his bed, and make the most precise, deliberate decision of his entire life? He shot himself in the chest, not the head. He needed his brain intact. He needed it studied. He needed the world to see what the NFL had done to him. The note said it all. Please, see that my brain is given to the NFL's brain bank. Before we go any further, if stories like this are why you're here, subscribe right now and hit that like button. It genuinely helps. Now let's get into it. Muncie, Indiana, population 40,000. The kind of town where Friday night lights aren't a metaphor. They're the only lights that matter. This is where Dave Duerson grew up, and if you were watching closely in the late 1970s, you would have seen something that small towns only produce once in a generation. Most kids pick a sport. Duerson picked all 3: football, basketball, baseball, not as hobbies. He was genuinely elite in all of them. The kind of athlete that makes opposing coaches call each other the night before a game just to compare notes. They never figured it out. By 1979, the entire state of Indiana had an answer. Duerson won Mr. Football, the highest honor a high school player in Indiana can receive. 1 award, 1 name. That name was Dave Duerson. Notre Dame came calling. And Duerson didn't just survive South Bend, he owned it. 4 straight years as a starter. All-American in 1981. All-American again in 1982. Team captain. Team MVP. 12 career interceptions returned for 256 yards. Numbers that announce a player who doesn't just react. He anticipates. But here's the detail everyone skips. While Duerson was dismantling offenses on Saturdays, he was sitting in economics lectures on Monday mornings. Not coasting through, not doing the minimum. He graduated with honors, a full economics degree from Notre Dame. Remember that, because later, much later, that same razor-sharp mind becomes the center of the most heartbreaking story the NFL has ever produced. In 1983, the Bears took him in the 3rd round, pick 64 overall, 3rd round, for a 2-time All-American, for Indiana's Mr. Football, for a Notre Dame captain who graduated with honors. 3rd round, nobody said the NFL was fair, but Duerson didn't argue, didn't complain. He packed his bags, flew to Chicago, and walked straight into one of the most ferocious defensive environments the league had ever assembled, and then he got to work. Chicago, 1983. Duerson walks into Halas Hall as a 3rd-round pick. Nobody was impressed. This was Buddy Ryan's defense. Ryan didn't care about your resume, your awards, or where you went to school. He cared about one thing: what happened when the ball snapped. Everything else was noise. Duerson spent his first 2 seasons doing what backup safeties do on a loaded roster. Special teams, sideline watching, waiting. The man ahead of him, Todd Bell, was a Pro Bowl starter, established, trusted, locked in. So Duerson waited. But here's what he did while he waited. He studied, not just film, not just the playbook. He absorbed Ryan's 46 defense like a dissertation. Every gap, every blitz package, every coverage rotation. That economics brain wasn't sitting idle. It was being applied to the most complex defensive scheme in professional football. Then 1985 arrived. Todd Bell held out over a contract dispute, missing the entire season. And suddenly the starting strong safety position on the most feared defense in the NFL was wide open. Duerson stepped in. What followed, nobody fully predicted. Ryan himself, the architect of this entire defense, had made no secret of his feelings. Duerson said it himself in a 2005 interview. I played through that whole season with Buddy telling me he was rooting for me to screw up. His own defensive coordinator. Rooting for him to fail. So what did Dave Duerson do? He became an all-pro, 5 interceptions, 2 sacks, a physical presence that made receivers reconsider their routes before they even broke off the line. The Bears went 15-1. They allowed just 12.4 points per game all season. They recorded back-to-back playoff shutouts. Then Super Bowl 20, Chicago 46, New England 10. The largest margin of victory in Super Bowl history at that point. Duerson was a champion at 25. Steve McMichael, the Bears' Pro Bowl defensive tackle, surrounded by Singletary, Dent, and Hampton, called Duerson the MVP of our defense. On that defense, the MVP, Buddy Ryan, never publicly admitted he was wrong. The scoreboard already did it for him. If 1985 announced Dave Duerson to the NFL, then 1986 made the entire league sit down and pay attention. Because what he did that season had never been done before. Not once. Not by anyone. 7 sacks by a defensive back in a single season. Let that sink in. Defensive backs don't get 7 sacks. That's a number that makes linebackers jealous. That's a number that makes dedicated pass rushers, players whose entire job is getting to the quarterback, look sideways at their own stat lines. Safeties cover. They tackle. They clean up. Dave Duerson didn't just clean up. He hunted. And while he was hunting quarterbacks, he was picking off their passes too. 6 interceptions, 139 return yards, 2 fumble recoveries, all in the same season, on top of the 7 sacks. Pro Football Weekly named him first team All-Pro. So did the Pro Football Writers Association. So did the Sporting News. That NFL record stood for 19 years, untouched, until Arizona's Adrian Wilson finally broke it in 2005. 19 years. Nobody touched it. Then 1987 arrived, and the NFL did something it had never done for Duerson before. It said, "Thank you, the NFL Man of the Year Award." You need to understand what this actually means because it gets glossed over every time someone recites his resume. This isn't a statistical award. It isn't given to the player with the most sacks. It is given to the player who best combines on-field excellence with leadership, integrity, and genuine community impact. The complete human being, not just the player. In 1987, that man was Dave Duerson, 26 years old. The same league that quietly slid him into the 3rd round 4 years earlier was now holding him up as the standard every player in professional football should aspire to reach. 4 consecutive Pro Bowls, 1985, 1986, 1987, 1988. No Bears safety before him had ever done that. None has matched it since. During that stretch, Chicago's defense ranked top 5 in total defense every single season, leading the entire NFL in fewest points allowed in 1985, 1986, and 1988. But here's where the road bends. 1988 playoffs, NFC divisional round, San Francisco. The 49ers dismantle Chicago 28-3. Just like that, the window slams shut. And then something shifts between Duerson and the Bears organization, never fully explained publicly. And after 7 seasons, 4 Pro Bowls, 1 Super Bowl ring, and the Man of the Year trophy, he's gone from Chicago. He joins Bill Parcells and the New York Giants for the 1990s season. Most players feel a move like that as rejection. Duerson treated it like a second chapter opening. The Giants went 13-3 that year. Super Bowl 25, Tampa, January 27th, 1991. Giants versus the Buffalo Bills, down to the final seconds. Scott Norwood, 47 yards, wide right. Giants 20, Bills 17, 2-time Super Bowl champion, 2 different franchises. Then 3 seasons in Phoenix with the Cardinals, 5 wins a year, no playoffs, just football, raw and physical and grinding, played by a man absorbing punishment his body was never designed to sustain forever. At least 10 concussions across his career, probably more. In that era, you didn't report them. You called it getting your bell rung. You taped up and ran back out. Nobody connected the dots. So nobody warned these men what they were silently trading away. Duerson retired in 1993, 33 years old, decorated beyond almost any safety in NFL history, and a brain that had already, invisibly, begun to change. Here's what nobody tells you about Dave Duerson after football. He didn't fade. He didn't coast on his name. He didn't show up to alumni events and sign autographs and call that a career. He built something. First came McDonald's franchises in Louisville, Kentucky. Then in 1995, he purchased the majority stake in a Wisconsin sausage company called Fair Oaks Farms. He didn't buy it to hold it. He transformed it. In 6 years, Duerson grew that company from $24 million in annual revenue to over $63 million, supplying product to Burger King, McDonald's, Olive Garden. So a food processing empire built from scratch by a man with an economics degree and an obsessive need to win at everything he touched. He earned an executive education certificate from Harvard Business School. He sat on the Notre Dame Board of Trustees. He served on the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. He was the model, the living, breathing proof that an NFL player could walk away from the game and build something greater than anything he'd done on the field. For a decade, Dave Duerson looked like the answer to every question about what athletes do after football. Then, in 2002, he sold his stake in Fair Oaks Farms and launched Duerson Foods, a state-of-the-art meat processing plant. New contracts, new ambitions. He mortgaged his Highland Park home to finance it. He borrowed millions. He bought freezer equipment from a company in the Netherlands, cutting edge, impressive, and catastrophically unreliable. The plant's opening was delayed 6 months. He fell behind on supply contracts. Creditors started calling. He sued the freezer manufacturer, won a $34 million judgment. The company filed for bankruptcy and never paid him a single dollar. By 2006, Duerson Foods was in receivership. The empire was gone, and something else was happening simultaneously, something nobody around him could fully name yet. Employees at his offices were noticing a change. His niece called colleagues in a panic, saying Dave was berating people, acting mean. The man who had paid healthcare premiums out of pocket for his factory workers, who had personally funded college tuition for kids from inner city Chicago, that man was becoming someone his own family didn't recognize. His temper was shortening. His moods were swinging violently. His behavior was becoming erratic and aggressive in ways that had no precedent. Nobody connected it to the hits yet. Nobody connected anything to the hits yet. In 2005, a domestic incident with his wife Alicia in South Bend. He pleaded guilty to misdemeanor domestic battery. Resigned from the Notre Dame Board of Trustees. The public image, carefully constructed over decades, cracked for the first time. Then came the pension board. And this is where the story becomes almost impossible to process. In 2006, the NFL Players Association appointed Duerson as a trustee on the Joint Disability Pension Board, the 6-member panel that controlled disability payments to retired players. Men who came forward describing cognitive decline, memory loss, depression, neurological symptoms directly linked to their playing careers. Men who needed help. Duerson voted against them repeatedly, aggressively. At a congressional hearing in 2007, he started a physical altercation with Sam Huff and Bernie Parish, 2 former greats who were speaking out for injured veterans. He stood before a Senate committee and publicly questioned whether former Viking lineman Brent Boyd's documented brain damage was even football-related. One lawyer who represented retired players said it plainly, "He caused more suffering personally than all the other board members combined." Read that sentence and then remember what Boston University would confirm 3 months after his death. The CTE in Duerson's brain was already moderately advanced by the time he sat on that board. The regions controlling judgment, impulse, and mood were already compromised. The disease that was destroying these men, the same disease he was voting to deny compensation for, was already living inside his own skull. He didn't know. Or maybe somewhere underneath the damage, he suspected, and couldn't face it. By 2009, his father Arthur, his hero, his North Star, a World War II veteran he idolized his entire life, died at age 86. 10 months later, Duerson filed for personal bankruptcy. Nearly $15 million in liabilities. His checking account contained $846. A 2002 Cadillac Escalade with 140,000 miles. His ex-wife sued him in bankruptcy court to recover his 2 Super Bowl rings and his Man of the Year trophy. The rings, the trophy, being claimed in a court filing. He was telling Alicia about the symptoms by then. Headaches that exploded like starbursts, blurred vision, short-term memory disappearing mid-sentence, difficulty spelling simple words. She said later, quietly, devastatingly, his brain had started dying 10 years ago. He fled to Florida, a condo in Sunny Isles Beach. He dropped out of sight for months. The man who once ran a $63 million company who earned the NFL's highest personal honor, who stood before Senate committees, was now alone in a beachfront apartment, unable to pay his condo fees, watching himself disappear from the inside. February 17th, 2011. He propped a chair against the front door. On the dining room table, he laid out documents, notes, a typed letter to Alicia detailing his assets and who to contact. On the bed, he placed a shadow box containing his father's 2 Bronze Star Army medals, a neatly folded American flag, his Notre Dame economics degree, his Harvard Business School certificate. He surrounded himself, one last time, with signifiers of excellence. Then he sent the texts to his family. The message was precise, clinical, characteristic. Please, see that my brain is given to the NFL's brain bank. He shot himself in the chest, not the head. The brain had to be preserved. Even at the very end, the economist in him was thinking about the evidence, about what the data would show. Yet about what it might mean for the men still playing the game that had taken everything from him. Veteran detectives who arrived at the scene said they had never seen anything so meticulously arranged. Dave Duerson was 50 years old. You're right, it's approximately 500 words against a 350 target. Let me cut it down hard. No fat, no repetition. Full impact preserved. May 2nd, 2011. Boston University School of Medicine. Neurologist Ann McKee steps to the podium. The results are in: moderately advanced CTE, the frontal cortex, the amygdala, the hippocampus, all damaged. These aren't abstract brain regions. They're the structures that control who you are, your judgment, your impulses, your memory, your mood, the parts that make you yourself. Duerson's son Treg stood at that press conference and delivered one sentence. Yeah, we have been given the gift of closure. Then came the number that reframed everything. Duerson was the 14th of 15 retired NFL players studied by Boston University. Of those 15 men, all but one had CTE, not an anomaly, a pattern, systemic, undeniable, a pattern the league could no longer postpone addressing. Time magazine called him football's first martyr. Former players pushed back. The debate around that phrase became its own legacy, because Duerson's death dragged the brain trauma conversation out of Senate hearing rooms and into living rooms across America. You couldn't ignore it anymore. He made sure of that. The pension board chapter now had context. The CTE damage to his judgment and impulse control was already moderately advanced. During those years, he voted against disabled veterans. He was not the man he had been. Not that the disease had arrived long before anyone knew to look for it. That doesn't erase the harm, but it reframes who was actually sitting in that chair. In 2015, his family publicly objected to how he was portrayed in the film Concussion. Even in death, the narrative around Dave Duerson resisted easy resolution. There was no clean ending. There never was. He didn't change football by playing it. Thousands of men played it. He changed it by making himself the evidence. One final, deliberate economist decision. The note asked one thing. Please, see that my brain is given to the NFL's brain bank. 4 Pro Bowls, 2 Super Bowl rings, NFL Man of the Year, and in the end, the greatest contribution Dave Duerson made to the game he gave everything to was the one he made by leaving it. If Duerson's story hit you the way it hit me, hit that like button. It takes 2 seconds and it means everything to this channel. Subscribe so you never miss another story like this one. And if you're ready for the next one, it's already waiting for you on your screen right now.